Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and this is our weekly TV news show where we talk about all the shows that are in development, any updates to current shows that are happening, and various other bits and pieces. Also, at the end of the show, we'll also pick our favourite episode of TV of the week. Quite a lot to pick from, still, right now. A lot of shows on.
Yeah, there is.
We seem to go through phases of having almost nothing to pick because it's all just Netflix shows we're watching, or it's, like this, and there's like 8 shows to pick from. But that is the plan. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah, cool.
So, it's. I mean, it ended up not being as quiet as I thought it was going to be, but it's still relatively pretty quiet because we're in kind of the post upfront news dry spell, because it's kind of like how with video games after E3 everything goes really quiet for a while because everyone's just revealed everything.
Yeah, we usually get a couple of months before they start up again.
Yeah, the new shows,
or at least the network cycle, at least.
Obviously, yeah, cables and streaming services are a little bit different, but but without further ado, I think we'll dive in and we'll talk about some stuff. Some nice news to begin with. Krypton got renewed for a second season. So that's good. Yeah, season finale was this week. We'll be talking about that in Television from the Multiverse, or DC TV podcast, if you want to hear our thoughts on that, along with the other shows that were on this week from DC. But so that's good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching the last episode, seeing what they set up for season 2, if they do set up things.
I think they will.
I'm assuming they will.
Yeah,
but
I've got a feeling there'll be a little bit of a cliffhanger, but we'll see.
Yeah.
So that's expected next year, which makes sense. I almost shat myself because it said expected in 2019. I'm like, what? Why is it 2019? Oh, that's next year now. We're in 2018. That's fine.
Well, yeah, we're well into 2018 as well.
I know. It's just these numbers are getting really high. 2019's Blade Runner year.
Yeah. That's why we had to have a new one, giving ourselves a bit of extra time so we can feel good about it.
Oh yeah, now it's 2049. We're all building up to.
Yeah, we're good.
Alright, so LA to Vegas was cancelled by Fox, which that's a sitcom, not super notable, only had 1 season, but the reason why I mention it is just because Fox are a complete bloodbath, and this is just another one to add to the list.
Yeah, I remember watching the trailer, and I meant to check it out at some point, never got around to it.
It seemed like a nice idea from the concept, but
I think the reason I never got around to checking it out is because they put it at mid-season instead of at the start, where with everything else here, where I go, okay, this is where I check out my comedies, see what I'm going to like the look of, but because it was mid-season, it just kind of slipped past me.
But hey, so compared to the last 2 weeks that had big lists of renewals and cancellations, that's it, just those 2.
Yeah, one of each.
I know, look at that. So next up, The Expanse. We have to talk about this because Expanse, of course, Sci-Fi are not doing any more seasons of it, but we mentioned that Alcon TV that make the show were looking for a new home. Some positive news this week. This is not final. This is not. It's a done deal. This is not. Contracts have not been signed as far as we know, but there is heavy talks apparently happening with Amazon to pick up the show from Alcon. So it sounds good. It's worth mentioning that Jeff Bezos, who's like the head of Amazon, is a big fan of the show and the books, and he could basically order his company to do it if he wants to.
Yeah, and we've spoken about in the past Amazon are throwing a lot of money into their movie and TV division right now, and a lot of it is just down to him going, I want to do this. Yeah, even it's not even about being financially successful at the moment.
What will be really funny to me is if it ends up with a bigger budget because of this.
Yeah, it could do.
If Amazon like, hey, we'll pay twice what Sci-Fi were paying you.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, I mean, not that the show looks bad, the show looks great, but
it does. It could stay on the exact same budget and be fine.
Oh yeah, absolutely fine. I could see it going to 10 episodes a season though, if this happens, which is fine, but I could see it.
Maybe. I mean, 13's not super uncommon for a streaming service.
It's not. I feel like most Amazon shows are all 10 though. Or less.
Yeah, but it's not out of the mold for them to go, oh yeah, go on then, 13.
Yeah, fair. The only downside to that would be is that, we're going through it at such a steady pace in the books that it would mean possibly longer between like actually getting to finish, the 3rd book and the 4th book and so on, if we're just doing 10 at a time. So I guess that's the one reason that would be a downside to it, but it'd be a minor quibble.
On other shows, I might wonder if they compensate by speeding up a little.
No, they wouldn't.
Season, but given that this show just finishes a book in the middle of a season and then starts the next one that feels like the start of a new season in the middle, Nah, they're just going to do whatever the hell they want, and
kind of applaud it.
Placement be damned.
Do you know what I think it's funny though? If we, assuming this goes through, and obviously we're hoping it does because we love the Expanse and we want it to continue for years and finish all the books and everything else, especially since it's just starting to touch upon new things. It's just this week's episode got into some interesting territory. What I would hope, or what I think might happen is, let's say it runs for 10 seasons and that's where it chooses to end or whatever. I do see almost like when you can binge it in the future, there'll be here's what the seasons actually were, but here's where the books all end in the show, and that's the unofficial
more natural breaking point.
Yeah, this is the unofficial season breakdown, so that you can you watch the episode 5 of season 2. That's that's the end of season 1 now. They'll come up with a name for it. It'll be I don't know,
volumes.
The Leviathan cut or something. I don't know. But just. I can see that being a thing.
I'm with you because in future, if I want to take a break, between sometimes when I'm rewatching a show, I'll take a break between seasons.
Yeah.
On this show, it won't be between seasons; it'll be at the end of books. So I'd have taken a break after the last week's episode.
I could totally see that happening. I wasn't really familiar with Bezos' love of the Expanse, but I became apparent this week. I saw that a couple of years ago when he was introducing the new Kindle. He was at a tech show. He was on stage introducing the new Kindle at the time. Don't know which one it was. Don't know if it's the current one or if it was the one before that. But he was like, "Hey, this is how the Kindle works," and he brought up a book and he was showing off how it reads through a book, and it was Leviathan Wakes, the first Expanse book. So he is a fan, and having this insane billionaire be a fan of the show is probably a good thing. So.
It is. I think it's interesting. He's clearly a man who reads a reasonable amount. If he's a fan of those books, I know. It's the reason the Lord of the Rings, they paid so much for the rights was because he said to do it, because he was a fan of Lord of the Rings. So I think he likes his sci-fi and fantasy. I'd assume. Obviously,
I'm not excited about Lord of the Rings just because I'm not a fan of that property, but there is something oddly really exciting about this, Bezos being just someone who's you know what, I love that book series, pump money into it.
It's the passion of a man who can put that much money into something just because he wants to. You kind of have to appreciate that, don't you?
Part of that, there's some scary downsides to this potentially, but it's exciting to think that no, he's just a passionate fan who's got the money to throw at it, so he can
back it up. Yeah.
But hey, so hopefully this goes through. It's very promising, and hopefully we get some official done deals very soon. I imagine they're unentangling some of the rights issues internationally, maybe.
Yeah, and then you have the question is if they're allowed to announce anything till after the season's finished and the contract's up with Sci-Fi.
What's really funny to me actually is if we end up in this weird place where it's an Amazon and Netflix show, depending, because I don't think that's happened before. Because obviously Amazon and Netflix are just both worldwide, so they don't deal with each other. That'd be a really funny situation, I think, if they don't sort out the rights issues. But hey, so here's hoping. Pause the video. Right. I don't usually do this. I don't usually record an extra bit for one of these shows on my own. However, whilst I was editing this news video, the news actually broke that the Expanse has been saved. Pretty officially. It's official. I mean, there's no hard details yet, but Bezos actually announced it at an event sometime tonight with the cast present, and there's a little video. You can find a video on Twitter, and everyone's erupting in applause as he announces the exact phrase, "The Expanse is saved." So obviously this kind of outstates some of our speculation that you just heard, but that's why I thought it was important to insert this in. I will bring this up again in the next week's news when Connor's here as well to talk about it, but I thought it was really important to add this in because I'm happy, I'm excited. Expanse is saved. We're getting more Expanse. It's good news. So back to your regularly scheduled news program. Anyway, so we'll move on. And we get a bit of an update on the Watchmen TV show this week, the Damien Lindelof HBO Watchmen show. First up, there was some casting for it. Regina King's been cast in the lead role, apparently. You might know her from The Leftovers. She was Erica, Thingy's wife, I've forgotten his name, John's wife, on The Leftovers seasons 2 and 3. So that's where you might know her from. She was recently on 7 Seconds as well. On Netflix, a bit more recently. So she's there. Don Johnson's been cast, Tim Blake Nelson, Louis Gossett Jr., Adelaide Clemens, and Andrew Howard are also cast in the show. But yeah, it says King's going to be the lead. And But that was just that, and there wasn't really much information on the characters themselves. But Lindelof also put out a big kind of like letter, an open letter on Instagram this week, and I've got a lot of it here just to kind of like say some of these points, because it kind of points to what he's going to be doing with this, because we were questioning when this was first announced, is it an adaptation, is it a sequel, is it this, is it that? This kind of tries to clear up a little bit. It's
kind of none of those things.
It's kind of none of those things, yeah. I mean, arguably it's still kind of a sequel if you really want to.
Well, that depends, doesn't it?
I guess it depends. Well, let me read this first before we debate it exactly. So he put out this open letter, basically saying that it'll be a completely new story set in the same world in the present day, and we have some direct quotes here. We have no desire to adapt the 12 issues that Mr. Moore and Mr. Gibbons created 30 years ago. Those issues are sacred ground and will not be retread, nor recreated, nor reproduced, nor rebooted. That's a lot of nors. You give me a lot of nors.
And it already had a bunch of those things done. You won't do them, but it has been done.
Oh yeah, if anything, he's throwing shade at some other things.
Yeah.
They will, however, be remixed. Because the bass lines in those familiar tracks are just too good, and we'd be fools not to sample them. He really likes using some metaphors here, doesn't he? Those original 12 issues are our Old Testament. When the New Testament came along, it did not erase. But by the way, the ego in Alan Moore right now, is he's reading how he's phrasing this, is got to be through the moon.
Alan Moore doesn't need any help stroking his ego.
The head will be almost big enough to fit into that beard.
He has an ego the size of Manchester already.
Which is almost big enough to fit into the beard.
Yeah, never quite, because the beard is an entity of its own.
Yeah, it's sentient. So yeah, the New Testament did not erase what came before it. Creation, the Garden of Eden, Abraham and Isaac, the flood, it all happened, and so it will be with Watchmen. The comedian did die. Oh, by the way, spoilers for the original Watchmen. Here, I mean, comedian dies.
The opening.
Well, no, but the next ones are not necessarily.
Oh, right, okay.
There's a list. So, spoilers for the original Watchmen if you want to skip ahead back a couple of minutes. The comedian died, Dan and Laurie fell in love, Ozymandias saved the world, and Dr. Manhattan left it just after blowing Rorschach into pieces in the bitter cold of the Antarctica. So, that got spoilery. Yeah. The story will be set in the world the creators painstakingly built, but in the tradition of the work that inspired it, this new story must be original, he said. It has to vibrate with the seismic unpredictability of its own tectonic plates. Man, he loves a good metaphor.
He does.
It just keeps throwing them in. It must ask new questions and explore the world through fresh lenses. Most importantly, it must be contemporary. The Old Testament was specific to the 80s of Reagan and Thatcher and Gorbachev. Ours needs to resonate with the frequency of Trump and May and Putin and the horse that he rides around on shirtless. And speaking of horsemen, the end of the world.
Reference. You've seen that picture, I assume.
Yeah, I've seen the shirtless Putin picture. Yes, I watched John Oliver last week tonight.
Not this season, you haven't.
I haven't watched this season yet, but he brought that picture up a lot.
He did. Beautiful picture.
I need to binge that new season, actually, when I get a chance.
Very good.
It is very good. I feel like I learn a lot, but it's also very funny.
It's very entertaining as well as informative.
Yes, exactly.
It's taken the ideologies of the BBC to heart.
Oh, you and your stroking of the BBC dick.
I'm just saying that was the original intention.
And speaking of horsemen, the end of the world is off the table, which means the heroes and villains, as if the two were distinguishable, are playing for different stakes entirely. Some of the characters will be unknown, his conclusion began. New faces, new masks to cover them. We also intend to revisit the past century of costumed adventuring through a surprising yet familiar set of eyes, and it is here that we will be taking our greatest risks. So, I'm excited by everything he's saying here. Largely because, given that I love Lost, given that I love Leftovers, I kind of trust him. And him just saying that he wants to play with the ideas of Watchmen, but not necessarily... I mean, sure, yes, all these things happened in the 80s in this world. Which is why I'm still arguing it's technically a sequel in some ways, because it's still...
Yeah. Do you know what my problem is why I'm not... I wouldn't say I'm excited.
Oh, go on.
This is going to sound really weird, but... I'm getting a sequel to Watchmen right now in the comics.
That is true. Here's the beauty of this, though. This is set present day, so this could still... Doomsday Clock still might exist in the content. I doubt it, admittedly, but it's possible.
Sure. But my point was, I'm getting that right now, and now I'm going, okay, here, have another one. I'm like, you know what, I really want an adaptation, even if they did a modernized adaptation and updated some of the themes, but I would have really liked an adaptation of sorts.
I'm okay. I don't really need an adaptation. I feel like the part that excites me more than anything here is that these are new characters, new masks. That part specifically, that excites me because they're doing whatever they want in the thematic style of Watchmen.
That excites me less because it's like, okay, it's cool. It's just, but at this point, it might as well just be a new show that's not Watchmen, right? You could tell me that this is just, oh, it's got another name. It's not that property. It's just that all these ideas that they're doing, but it's not Watchmen.
You don't know what they're going to use though, as well as part of the world, as part of the fabric.
And I know, but right, it makes me less excited inherently.
Oh, that's weird because that's easily the part I'm most excited about. Because to me, that's like no, I'm getting a Lindelof show set in the Watchmen universe.
Yeah, but I wanted a Watchmen show that happened to be by him, rather than no, I wanted one of his shows.
But you've got the book. You don't need to do that again.
Well, no, but I wanted to see it done faithfully. I wanted to see it done justice on the screen.
Are you saying our Lord and Savior Zack Snyder did not make a faithful adaptation?
Do you know what? To be fair, it's not actually that bad an adaptation up until until you get to the end.
Yeah, the problem with the Watchmen movie is that sure he takes the panels and puts them on the screen. He just doesn't really. You can tell he doesn't understand the depth of it.
It's almost too faithful, right? Because it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't really understand what needs to work for the screen and what's just recreation. So I wanted to see an adaptation, but done well.
Look, I am willing to bet you money that in our lifetimes you'll get that. I'm not
probably.
Watchmen will be adapted time and time again, right?
And don't get me wrong, this might be a very good show. I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna I like Leftovers. I have very little opinion on Lost, admittedly, but I like Leftovers, and I'm just a little bit less excited than I was before.
Yeah, nah, it's funny because what's making you less excited is what's making me more excited, and I think all of your concerns, once you actually like the show, will probably just go out the window.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Because if it's great, it's great, and you'll just be like, "Oh, I like these new characters, and it's doing this thing." And
that's the thing. I'm not saying this isn't going to be great. I think it has just as much potential to be a great show because of the talent that are involved, rather than the adaptation and the source material. But I'm just less excited for it because it's not the adaptation. It's not the story I wanted. That I thought I was getting. That I was like, okay, I was getting a Watchmen story. I wanted to see that story. Now I'm getting a slightly different story.
Do you think we're going to get actors playing Trump, May, and Putin?
No.
I'm just thinking
you might get the odd voice impersonator on a TV.
I'm just thinking the way Nixon was involved in Watchmen.
Yeah, you might get a bit of stock footage on the TVs and some voice impersonation going on, but I don't think you'll get them actually as characters.
I can see it. I'm willing to bet you money it'll be much better than the movie.
I'm willing to accept that.
Yeah, you're not taking that back because you know it's a Phil's choice.
Like I said, I think that's a perfectly decent movie as well. It's not a bad movie by any means.
Oh no, it's not terrible. It's just kind of like
uninspired.
Uninspired, yeah. I feel like there was no artistry in actually making it.
It's not like, oh, this is a great movie, but it's a perfectly watchable and enjoyable movie. Like, you're not gonna waste your time with it. But this probably will be better. Don't get me wrong. I don't disagree with that.
Anyway, we'll move on. Sci-Fi's Deadly Class has had a bit of a shake-up. The showrunner has been swapped out because we had the original showrunner of Adam Targum, who has reportedly been replaced by Mick Betancourt, and apparently he left over creative differences. So get a new showrunner before the first season even airs.
That's interesting that that's happened after we've got a trailer.
Yeah. I wonder if they had to... Like, to me that says that Season 1's mostly been done, and they had so much grief working with them on Season 1 up until now that they said, you know what, we know enough now to get rid of them.
Yeah. The cynic in me is going, he wanted to do his own thing, and they were like, no, do what Remender says.
And the Russos, who are also producing.
Sure, them too.
I mean, obviously, we'll see what the show ends up being like. I mean... Obviously, showrunners being swapped out before it starts does not fill me with confidence, but at the same time, that's happened and not had an effect on the quality of something as well. So, you know.
It has, yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I thought it was worth mentioning. Next up, Adam Nagaitis. Do you know who that is off the top of your head? Adam Nagaitis.
No, name's not ringing a bell.
Cornelius Hickey from The Terror.
Ah, okay.
who now, after being exposed on that show, is now something of a hot item to grab in your TV shows because he was pretty good.
It was, yeah.
I hated him sufficiently because his character was a scumbag.
He accurately portrayed being awful.
Yes, he was a great villain. So he's been added to the cast of Chernobyl, the HBO limited series that's coming. Interestingly, Jared Harris is also in this, so that's a bit of a reunion there.
A bit of a reunion, yeah.
Taking that. Jesse Buckley, Adrian Rollins, and Con O'Neill have also joined the cast, as well as the cast who are already there, including Jared Harris, Stellan Skarsgård, Emily Watson, and that's it. Yeah, so that's who's in this.
Jared Harris definitely just put in a word for him. It's like, hey, he was pretty good.
maybe he did. So yeah, and obviously Chernobyl, about the Chernobyl disaster from
no shit
1986, which does make me question though if we're all going to be putting on some accents with this.
It depends on are they supposed to be the Russians in there, or you know.
I'll read the paragraph here. Penned by Craig Mazin, the 5-part miniseries dramatises the true story of one of the worst man-made catastrophes in history: the April 26, 1986 explosion at the Chernobyl nuclear plant in the then Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, and follows the brave men and women who sacrificed to save Europe from an unmanageable disaster. It depends. Did they bring in like outsiders to help with the disaster?
I don't know. Yeah. It sounds to me like it could be, you know, groups from around Europe going, right, okay, we should probably step in and help out here.
I buy that Jared Harris can do a Russian accent, though.
Well, yeah, we've seen his accent work.
He does many an accent. He does fake accents on The Expanse that are completely made up, but he nails it so well.
Yeah. And, you know, what's his name doing? Hickey did some accent work in The Terror. That was pretty good.
He did. I don't imagine Russians being ginger, though, I have to admit. American Dye is here, of course, but...
Yeah, no, you're right. Just have one of those Russian hats on at all times.
Next up, Amazing Stories, Apple's anthology show, the reboot of the 80s show from NBC. I've got some showrunners, Adam Horowitz and Edward Kitsis from Once Upon a Time, that just finished. They're going to be...
Well, these are the ones replacing, what's his name?
Yes. Brian Fuller was originally there along with Hart Hansen, but they departed in February. It's been long enough, though, that I don't feel like they're coming in and swapping. It's like,
they haven't rushed into this decision.
Yeah, there's not been... Because I feel like with the other one, it's like, no, we got rid of him and brought in this guy in the same week because we had to replace him. This was like, no, we got rid of someone in February and we've just been... We don't need one yet. we'll wait.
Yeah, no.
So yeah, they've run the show, so... Amazing Stories still happening, still a thing.
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah, plan for 2 seasons.
I imagine this did delay it a little bit.
I mean, it depends when they were planning on it launching in the first place. I mean, who knows? Next up, Kim Cattrall from Sex and the City is going to be the lead opposite Billy Magnuson in CB All Access straight-to-series psychological thriller Tell Me a Story, which is written by Kevin Williamson. So this is one of CBS All Access's original content, you know, from Apple to CBS All Access, because there's tons of these original content platforms now. So written by Williamson, Tell Me a Story takes the world's most beloved fairy tales and reimagines them as a dark and twisted psychological thriller. Set in modern-day New York City, the first season of this serialized drama interweaves Three Little Pigs, Little Red Riding Hood, and Hansel and Gretel into an epic and subversive tale of love, loss, greed, revenge, and murder.
Okay. That's something.
So, like Fables?
Yeah. I think it's funny that the last story you mentioned was, you know, the showrunner from Once Upon a Time.
Yeah.
Which kind of did this, right? You know, that was all the Disney characters, right?
Yeah, it was the Disney side of things, but yeah, similar kind of... I think that was obviously an ABC show. This sounds like they're going for something a bit darker, a bit more mature.
It does. But I just think it was a funny little link between the two stories there.
But it sounds like it could be interesting.
Yeah, does sound closer to Fables than Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, but, you know, it's funny actually, because Fables almost became a TV show twice, and it didn't happen, so...
Yes, instead we got a Telltale game, which the second one got delayed. I really like that first one, and they promised us another one, and then, you know, that was years ago already. they just delayed it by like another year because they went, "Ah, no, we're starting over. We want a new direction." Bastards.
Next up, Natalie Dormer is going to play the lead in a limited series, I believe this is, based on the life of Vivien Leigh, the classic movie actress, Gone with the Wind, one of the big notable ones, Streetcar Named Desire, another one. So she's going to play Vivien Leigh. She's also producing with Fermental Media and Main Street Pictures. And it's basically, obviously it's a biopic, but I kind of like part of how they're describing this. A number of episodes, how many episodes is yet to be determined, like how long it's going to be. But the idea is that each episode will be a specific project and from our filmography. So
they'll be doing a different film that she's been working on.
And it'll be different eras. So obviously Gone with the Wind's the 30s, Streetcar Named Desires, the 50s. So the idea is that it'll be like different like points in her life. I actually kind of like that idea as a way to go through her life.
It is. I think it's particularly interesting if she's playing her in all of them.
Yeah, I would imagine maybe it'll be over like a 20-year period, so you can just do it with some makeup.
Yeah, you can't go too far.
Yeah, but if you're starting in the I think they've mentioned in the 20s. Yeah, so starting in the 30s. But yeah, so it also mentions her 20-year marriage to Laurence Olivier. So you got a bit of a time span there as well. Issues of mental health, career, female empowerment or lack thereof, and love will be explored in the series. So I'm not a big biopic person. I do like the idea though, if you're going to go to an actor to like use all their big movies and like have an episode about each one.
I like the idea of you check in periodically and you go, oh, what's changed, right, between movies essentially.
Hell, I would go one step further. I'd love if this was like just one day on set in each movie, rather than like the story of the whole movie. Yeah,
that would be good. Yeah. I mean, who knows? Maybe that's what it is. See where she is at that point in her life through one day.
And that way, your setting for each movie would be like the famous movie set. Like, so Gone with the Wind would be the big house, Streetcar Named Desire would be the apartment building, maybe the outside area. You could do that throughout. And then, I see potential in that. That's just a fun way of doing it.
It is. There's a gimmick to it, but,
And I like...
Good things have a gimmick at times.
And that's it. Even if it's not that, and it is just, we'll go through the entire, like, it'll be an hour, and that hour will tell the story of, like, her getting involved in this movie, the things that were related.
Do you know what the thing is? I don't think we can do that for every movie. We can do that once or twice, but it gets repetitive, right?
I think we'll do that for the first one big role, and then after that, it'll just be taken for granted she's got movie roles because she's a star now, maybe. Yeah. Unless there's a story to that specific one that's worth telling. But there might be. But
makes sense.
But hey, so... Moving on, John Malkovich and Rupert Grint, of all people. You're God.
He's not one of my people.
I said, not one of your people. I said, you're God. There's a difference.
It's definitely not that. You have to have a soul to pray to gods, apparently.
But anyway, so they've signed on for the ABC Murders. Amazon... and the BBC are coming together for this. This is a limited series based on the Agatha Christie novel, one of the big stories of Poirot, and Malkovich is playing him. So that's what you're getting. So I mean, I'm not super familiar with the ABC Murders specifically. I'm familiar with the Agatha Christie stories. My favorite
Poirot in general, I'm familiar with, but not this one.
Yeah, Agatha Christie. Though my favorite adaptation of her work is actually not one of the Poirot ones. It's Witness for the Prosecution.
Okay.
Billy Wilder directed. That's a fantastic film. But hey, so you've got that. It's funny actually because there's obviously the Kenneth Branagh movies, because obviously the first one, Orient Express, came out last year, and they're doing Death in the Nile with him next as a sequel. Yeah.
I didn't know they were doing more.
Yeah. So it's interesting. This is coming sort of in the middle of all this, but so John Malkovich is going to play him though, and Grint is there as well. The article didn't give me a synopsis for it, and I was like, well, this will be easy to find. So I went to like a book synopsis just so you can
just a wiki page. You'll do the trick.
Just so I can tell you. Well, actually, no, wiki was a failed attempt because it just gave me like an in-depth, like it didn't give me like a synopsis in one paragraph. It gave me an entire breakdown of the entire.
Really? It didn't have
book.
The synopsis as well. Oh,
no.
Wiki, what are you doing?
I know. Anyway, so when a serial killer nicknamed ABC taunts Poirot and veiled letters and kills people in alphabetical order. I was skipping consonants there. It was sounding weird.
Ironic in the one about the alphabet.
I know. It's funny. But yeah, so he's killing people in alphabetical order. Poirot employs an unconventional method to track down ABC. In a seemingly unconnected story, a travelling salesman named Alexander Bonaparte Cust has travelled to all of the murder locations on the day of the crimes occurred. Cust has suffered a blow in the head during military service. As a result, he is prone to blackouts, headaches, and epileptic attacks.
Well, that sounds mighty suspicious, doesn't it?
Could this seemingly innocent stranger be the eponymous killer? Given that they're teasing it there, I'm going to assume he's not.
Almost certainly not.
Yeah, yeah, they're teasing it too hard there in the synopsis. But who knows? Maybe he is. But obviously he's going to play into it in some way. Yeah, otherwise, what's the point of this side plot of this dude? Right. But no, murder mystery.
Oh, that's cool.
Typically down for those types of things. But hey, next up, Atrium TV, which is like a drama commissioning club for pay TV platforms. This was set up by people who used to work at Sony. So this is like a TV development pool, but they actually sell their shows and projects to like various places and various networks.
They're not a production company. They're essentially like a talent scout.
Kind of.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they basically sell shows to a bunch of different networks, and they had their big like conference recently to show all their kind of partners. Okay, here's the projects that are all in the works. So we got quite a few shows here to talk about that are coming from this. Some big names attached to a couple of them. So yeah, and there's a couple that were already announced, which we'll get to as well. So first up, we've got one called Silo. This is the streets of San Francisco will look very different in the Michael Douglas produced Silo, one of the new shows in Atrium's lineup, a high concept drama. It will be set in a futuristic version of the city where the haves live in the gated communities and the have-nots live on the other side of the wall. So
it's very unimaginative naming.
That's fair, but
I mean, you could have come up with something more than haves and have-nots. That's all I'm saying.
I'm sure when they actually write a proper synopsis, it'll be a bit more jazzy.
I should hope so.
But basically, it's funny actually because obviously we're watching 3% right now. It's definitely got vibes of that kind of sci-fi. It's that type of dystopia.
Yeah, class society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But obviously we like that kind of thing. So
yeah, definitely.
No reason not to at least have this on our radar and keep an eye on it and see if it pops up with something worth watching. Next up, David Simon, of course, who's from The Wire and The Deuce. So notable writer here. So this is a reason to pay attention. He's working on a series about a battalion of Americans in the Spanish Civil War and how it emerged that it has now emerged that the show will be called A Dry Run: The Lincolns in Spain. So not a lot to go on there, but I mean you get the basic gist of it.
If you hadn't told me the talent, I would be completely uninterested.
But the talent makes it interesting.
It makes me at least question that. Okay, there's something there at least.
Yeah, because think of The Deuce. If you just told you the premise of The Deuce, would you be excited?
I wouldn't be excited. I think I'd be at least more open because this is it's a war story, right? If you just told me, took out his name, I'll be like, okay, I'm not interested.
Oh, where's the gritty 70s like sex trafficking or whatever?
There's something there.
Yeah. But yeah, so David Simon doing something that is worth paying attention to. So that's A Dry Run: The Lincolns in Spain. So that's interesting. Sherlock producer Hartswood Films and Riviera's Foz Allen are adapting Boris Pasternak's classic novel Dr. Zhivago. Vikings writer Michael Hurst is going to write the series, and apparently it's going to stick more to the novel than the 65 film did, the David Lean film, which I've seen. It's a pretty solid epic if you like those types of movies.
Yeah, cool.
Lots of nice visuals in that. But Dr. Zhivago, so that's something that's also in the works. Ava DuVernay is working on a show. She's going to helm The Last Amazons, a drama about the great mythical Amazon queens, their lives, loves, and their major battles, notably against the ancient Greeks.
Did we know about this one? This one sounds really familiar.
I think we might have heard that it was being worked on. I don't remember that title, though. Maybe there wasn't a title.
Maybe not, but that in general sounds familiar to me.
This one isn't mentioned. This was brought up before, whereas there's two coming up here where they've definitely been mentioned.
Maybe I'm mixing it up with something else that was spoken
There was
about.
definitely an Amazon show of some kind. I don't know if it was this one, though.
No, okay.
So then there's two that we already kind of knew about, and I remember talking about at least one of them. I remember talking about One Giant Leap, which is a moon landing drama. So that one. That was already greenlit, so that's happening. And then Quasimodo, an adaptation of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, is also now being greenlit, and that's coming from Ashley Farrell, who worked on Life on Mars. So a bunch of different shows there, being sold to multiple countries. So, but obviously there was too much in there, too many names. I was like, okay, we need to mention all these and sort of put them out there.
A lot of variety in the shows as well.
A lot of variety. Certainly, of course, we're interested in sci-fi shows. David Simon, I'm interested in. Last Amazons does sound interesting.
It does, yeah.
And we'll see if a TV show about Quasimodo is.
I'm intrigued.
I mean, it's intriguing. I don't know what they're going to do with it. Past the one-season story, but
they've got me interested at least as to what it is, which is a start, right?
And in a tease for this week's movie news, there's also a Quasimodo film in development. So,
I actually saw that piece of news already.
Yeah, more on that in the movie news this week, and there will be a movie news this week. I know we skipped last week. The ginger responsible remain nameless, but there will be movie news.
You're right. It was a cat. I'm sorry.
The human ginger responsible shall remain nameless.
Damn it! I've been dropped in it.
Anyway, so on to the last news story of the week. Yeah. So,
is that it?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously we had near 2-hour shows the last couple of weeks, but like I say, it's the quieter period.
I know you said it was a lighter week, but then when you started this percentage, it's not quite as light as you expected. I thought we might get to an hour at least.
Oh no. I feel like this is going to be more normal runtime for the next little while as we're in the quieter period. But so FX is developing a show called Run, a female-driven drama inspired by the political career of retired U.S. Senator Barbara Boxer. And the project comes from Boxer and her daughter, documentary producer Nicole Boxer. So her daughter's actually a filmmaker and is working on this. So just a drama though. I'll just make that clear. Just so you're not thinking, oh, documentary producer, is that documentary? That's not. So it centers on a woman launching a highly improbable bid for Congress. The project will draw inspiration from Boxer's experiences in Congress, where she served 34 years representing the state of California, 10 years in the House of Representatives, 24 years in the Senate. She was elected to the Senate in 1992, dubbed the Year of the Woman, topping an all-male field of rivals, and made big inroads into the male-dominated institution. In her 2004 re-election, she set the record for the most votes in any US Senate election in history, with 6.96 million. During her career, Boxer's trademark issues were women's rights and the environment. Oh, jeez, we need more people focusing on those, don't we? I'm suddenly upset she's retired.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a long career, so...
Oh, sure, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, she's succeeded by Kamala Harris, who I'm sure is doing a fine job, but...
Oh, I couldn't judge. I
couldn't tell you. I'm just saying, those are two key areas that I think need some attention at the moment.
Can't argue with that.
But regardless, I'm not really into biopics. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of notable reasons to do this. Honestly, the thought of watching a show about someone's like real life political career, regardless of how important that person might be, sounds kind of boring to me. I respect it in a real life context. I don't know if I want to watch episodes of a TV show about it.
I think I'd rather watch a documentary.
Oh, that's fair, yeah.
Because at least then it's like, okay, I know what I'm getting. Whereas a dramatization, they try and make it more interesting. And instead, it's just like it's just a biopic, right?
Yeah. So. No, she sounds important enough to make something about, but maybe a documentary would be better suited. That said, if you're into like I assume what is going to be a relatively dry. In fact, it may not be that dry. I can see them, going from the angle of she was breaking a lot of new ground as this first woman who really broke into this boys' club.
Go from the rebellious angle.
Yeah, there's definitely ways to make this not be that dry. But still, I still think it'll be drier than I would like.
Ultimately, it's a biopic, and it's rare that you come out of them thinking they're great. They often are quite dry by their nature.
Yeah, just by their nature. Add into that, it's like a political biopic. I'm like, well, okay. I mean, you're crossing out things. Yeah, this is the tick boxes of me not being interested. You're ticking
right
as we're doing this. So, but hey ho, it's a thing. It's happening. FX is doing it. So. If that's interesting to you, then cool. But that brings an end to the show, and as we always do at the end of the news, we pick our favourite episode of TV of the week. Here's what happened this week. Here's what we covered and talked about. We had the finales of both the Terror Season 1 and this current season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Not the final season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because as we talked about last week, renewed.
How good does that feel to say it like that?
It feels so good. But we had those. We had, obviously, Handmaid's Tale, we had Legion, we had The Expanse, and of course, we're still working through some Netflix shows and 3% and Dear White People. Although we typically exclude them when we're talking about picking our favourite. So those are the options. And it's an interesting week, I think.
It is. I don't feel like there's a standout this week necessarily. Not in the way there is some weeks.
Interestingly, Handmaid's Tale was excellent as always, but I don't feel like I'm clinging to that one as the pick this week. I don't think Westworld, well solid, isn't standing out to me either. I feel like, honestly, for me, it's between The Expanse and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, I was going to say, Westworld, it had the one subplot we weren't really feeling as much. That said, I did see a side-by-side comparison of a scene that made me love it even more.
Oh, how it was compared to the first episode, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
The way it lines up is beautiful.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
But
again, I don't think it's that's the best episode easily because of that.
Honestly, I think the emotion impact of S.H.I.E.L.D. is going to make me pick that. I think that and then Expanse is a close second. I think Expanse was introducing me to so many new ideas with this episode that I was really into that. But
yeah, no, I'm with you on those two being the front runners. You went with S.H.I.E.L.D. I think I'm going to go with Expanse just for the sheer audacity to do what is essentially a season opener in the middle of your season. and have it work and not feel like I've just killed all the momentum.
It does. It feels like a new beginning. You're just excited. It's like, all these shiny new things. Where are we? What are we doing?
It's like, look at all this new toys to play with. It has me so excited about the rest of the season. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Expanse.
Yeah. Also,
but obviously, S.H.I.E.L.D. is fantastic.
Yeah, S.H.I.E.L.D. was such an emotional hit. It
was.
Probably maybe its best season finale. I think.
Oh, it definitely was the best season finale. Yeah.
I think that's very true. Also, for Expanse fans, thanks to all the comments, I will never forget what delta velocity is now. Thank you. More on that in the next Expanse review when I recant. Oh, I like what I did there. Remember the recant? Yeah, when I recant my opening of the last episode review when I incorrectly pronounced delta V as delta 5. I'm so sorry. It looked like a Roman numeral. Now I know. Although, that said, when it was explained to me what it was, I see how it fits into the episode with the ending.
It makes sense.
It makes sense.
The context is key.
But still, it looked like a Roman numeral. As someone who didn't know what that was, it looked like a Roman numeral. I said 5. I apologise dearly, okay?
You got so much shit for that.
Oh, I did. Most people were nice about it. It was always the one or two assholes who get really snide about it, but everyone else was nice. But hey, so that is that. Obviously, coming up this week, we do have... we have nothing new or no finales actually. I guess we should be finishing 3% before we get to the next news. That should be finished. We'll still have a few left of Dear White People though, which will continue on. The following week, but that's pretty much it. There's not a whole lot else to do, which means that we can plug some things. I think we announced last week Almost Cancelled Extra, which is our sort of monthly discussion show, which is not about a news topic. Although sometimes it may be inspired by a news topic. That's a bonus episode for patrons at the $3 tier and up. We've not done the first one yet. The first one's coming sometime within the next week or so. And we're going to talk about renewals and cancellations. Not so much what was renewed and cancelled this year, more just past stories of renewals and cancellations and talking about the system.
Just the process as well. You know, we talk about here, we talk about the network cycle. Yeah. And obviously... a lot of that is focused at the end of the cycle is the renewal cancellation period.
And that doesn't apply to everyone else. And so we'll talk about that. It'll be a nice sort of casual discussion about that stuff. And there's also the movie equivalent 121 Extra, which is like movie topics in a similar vein. And by all means, suggest other topics to discuss, especially if you're a patron and you're actually watching or listening to them once they start going up. Give us more ideas for topics. But you can check out that. So obviously check out patreon.com/MailFuzzTV where you can find that. There's a link in the description. Look at everything else that's on offer for all the other stuff we do as well. There's bonus comics content, bonus movie content, there's early access to a few things. So have a look at all that stuff. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. So as always, support the show either by going to Patreon, but you can also support us by liking, subscribing, clicking the bell on the YouTube so you actually get the notifications. Yeah. I've heard other YouTubers say that, and I feel like, maybe we should start saying that now.
Yeah, no, Joe, this is one of those things that people have been saying for ages, and then I think only recently people have kind of cottoned on that you actually need to do that.
Yeah.
Because YouTube's a finicky bastard and makes you jump through hoops to do anything.
I mean, you know what? Do it if you want. I mean, like, I'm not going to force you to do it. If you want to click the bell as well, click the bell as well. That said, I understand why you wouldn't with us, though. Because you might be here for 2 specific shows, or you might be here just for the horror movie podcast, and you don't necessarily want notifications for everything that goes up. I understand
It's funny because we're mostly pretty consistent in our schedule. On this show is on a certain day, so the review will go up on this day. So you can kind of reliably know when our things are going up. You can kind of just check in every week and get that show if that's all you're here for.
Although the irony of you saying that this week when things were a bit delayed.
That's why I said mostly.
Mostly, yes. Again, human gingers that remain nameless are at fault for any delays this week. Anyway, that's the news show. That's almost cancelled news. Hopefully you had fun. Hopefully you enjoyed this conversation. The tangents and rambles that may have happened along the way. But we love you as always. Keep watching TV. We'll see you next time. Have you got any vanilla?